Hello, welcome back. So in this video, we are going to cover the three primary structures of consciousness as laid out by Carl Jung. And Carl Jung also famously coined the term the shadow, helped develop this construct of the shadow. And he also famously said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. I think so many of us do that. We wonder why the same relationship patterns keep showing up in our lives. As someone said recently, I keep facing the same issue. It just shows up wearing a different outfit.
Yes.
And we call it fate.
Yes.
But it's really these unconscious underpinnings that are churning just out of sight, just beneath the surface, that are really governing so much of our thought patterns, our belief structures, and our behaviors. The inner world is reflected in the outer world.
Yes. And we talk a lot in this series about consciousness. What does it mean to be conscious? So, sort of to simplify, people think about consciousness as your waking state, right? I'm conscious, I'm aware, I'm awake. The things we're paying attention to are within our conscious mind, our conscious reality, the things that we are paying attention to. And you had a really great little tidbit about sort of consciousness and how you think about it from a yogic perspective.
Yes.
Yeah.
So fascinatingly enough, the ancient yogis who were studying the science of the mind, the body, and the spirit 5,000 years ago, in the ancient texts of yoga, there's this phrase, prana follows chitta. Prana follows chitta. So chitta is the Sanskrit word for mind or consciousness. They too were struggling with the same things we're struggling with. This idea of our waking awareness. Prana is loosely defined as energy, your life force energy. It's that animating, luminous quality that makes you alive. And there's prana in all of life. In fact, all of everything, all of matter is comprised of prana, just to varying degrees and densities, right? There's prana in the trees. There's prana in the ionized spray of water that washes up on the shoreline as the waves crash against the sand. There's prana in your veins. There's prana in your thoughts. So our prana, our energy, follows chitta, our awareness. Or to put simply, where your attention goes, your energy flows. That's sort of how many of the modern New Age movements have adapted this very ancient concept. Where your attention goes, your energy flows. And we know this to be true.
Yes, we love that. So throughout this course, if you think about it, like putting your awareness, your energy, into focusing on maybe what is in currently the unconscious part, making it conscious, right? And so this sort of segues into, what do we mean when we say unconsciousness? So there's two levels of unconsciousness that we want to talk about. So our personal unconscious and then our collective unconscious. And so when we think about our personal unconscious, we're really thinking about the things that have accumulated over our lifespan that we are not currently aware of in our everyday consciousness. So maybe it is that thing that was said to you when you were in third grade, from maybe your mom said that you were fat, right, when you're in third grade. You start to believe that being fat is something that is negative, that is shameful, that is bad, right? And then that unconscious belief then starts to turn into other beliefs, like that you must be a certain attractiveness at all time, or that attractiveness is a very rigid, limited set of qualities, which may then turn you into someone who has issues with food, or you're never satisfied when you look into a mirror, or you may stereotype or judge people who don't fit that rigid notion of what it means to be attractive, right? And so many of these things are layered upon layered upon layered in our unconscious space, right? So we may hold the belief that in order to be attractive, you must be thin. But in the unconsciousness, we don't realize all of the layers of how that's showing up, and even deeper, where that even came from originally, right? Where did that belief go to? And often it's the shame that pushes down some of these beliefs and thoughts and deep held feelings out of our conscious awareness, deep, deep, deep into our personal unconscious.
Yes. Beautifully said. So you can see where all of this trouble emerges.
Yes.
That we're not even conscious of, right? Because the conscious is that waking state, that side of you that switches on the moment you wake up with the to-do list and the set of tasks and accomplishments and stressors and the ego identifications, the persona that we identify with, that we show to the world. So this then leads us to the collective unconscious. And the collective unconscious is that deeper state even embedded with the personal unconscious. And I think it might be helpful to visualize the common image for these structures of the mind, like the glacier, right? We have the surface of the water, the tip of the iceberg is your consciousness. And it's quite amusing because that's all we often associate with, because it's all we're aware of. That's just the tip of the iceberg, though.
Yes.
And everything beneath it, we know the bigger chunk of the iceberg is really below the surface. And that's why we're going on this deep dive these next few weeks to the depths of who you really are. And the collective unconscious then encompasses all of the stories, the images, the opinions, the ideologies of how you should be and what you should believe and what really you construct as true or right or wrong or evil in waking life. That collective unconscious is the amalgamation then of the greater collective. It's defined by your family lineage. It's defined by the cultures, not only the culture that you grew up with, but the cultures of your ancestors as well. That is deeply rooted and embedded within your own family history and the stories that your parents, your grandparents, your guardians, your family members were taught. That seeps through generation after generation and ultimately gets into us, even though we're not consciously aware of it. All of those cultural myths and ideologies, whether or not they're actually true or not, are still bubbling underneath the surface. And I think part of the power of this work is that you get the opportunity now to finally create spaciousness within your own conscious awareness, to open up to the unconscious and determine for yourself, is this true? Is this true for me in my life right now? Is this helpful? And so the cultural myths, the family lines, the greater historical structures that get into us develop our own sense of story. And stories are really what ultimately allows us to make meaning out of this human experience, for better or for worse.
Yes. Yes, right. And the accumulation of traumas, right? So thinking about the brutality of the human experience, right? And how those leave lasting impressions in our psyches and even into our genetic code. So what we're doing is really radical work when we think about even possibly changing our own genetic coding
Yes.
at the core cellular level. So we're excited about this. We hope that you're reading along in your PDF packet and that you're doing a little bit more work and starting to think about what is in your everyday consciousness, what is in your personal unconscious, and what is in your collective unconscious.
Yes. Thank you so much, and we'll catch you in the next video.
All right.